The U.S. Defense Department offered this image of one of its missile launches aimed, it says, at terrorists with the so-called Islamic State. This unverified video purports to show one of the target locations, in the region where a small but growing segment of militants called La Kurawa is partly based.
My fear now is that there's going to be a very big revenge from these terrorists because of what has happened.
For me, it's a welcome development. I mean, for quite some time now, we've had attacks, civilians, attacks on property, kidnappings all over the country, and the government doesn't seem to have the capacity to deal with it.
I'm not in support of what America has done, because it will hurt our country, Nigeria.
And I support Donald Trump so that we come to Nigeria and help us.
Last month, Trump foreshadowed the strikes on Nigerian terror targets with the aim of saving Christians.
If we attack, it will be fast, vicious, and sweet, just like the terrorist thugs attack our cherished Christians.
An array of jihadist groups have waged an insurgency in Nigeria's north since 2009. Analysts point out the victims are mostly Muslim. The government said it welcomed the Christmas Day support, though, and civilians in favor see a benefit for all from short-term U.S. intervention.
Well, for more on this now, we're joined by Juma Ayandele from New York University's Center for Global Affairs. She joins us from New York. Juma, President Trump is stressing that the military action is meant to protect Nigerian Christians, but Nigerian authorities have stressed time and again that the deadly violence is affecting both Christian and Muslim communities. What do you make of Trump's explanation for U.S. military intervention in Nigeria?
Yes, thank you again for having me on your segment. For the most part, what the Nigerian government is signaling here is very important. Washington's role, especially on the ground, is being framed as a counterterrorism support, not necessarily unilateral intervention. So with the statements that Minister Yusuf Tuga has said today, this was a joint operation with Nigeria providing intelligence and the U.S. offering precision air support. And that distinction is very, very important, and it matters because it speaks directly to what is at stake with Nigeria's sovereignty. As you have said, the narrative of this is a religious war is overly simplistic and frankly might be misleading. And this also risks simplifying what is going on and the counterterrorism support that Washington can possibly provide the Nigerian government.
Okay, well, if we were to dismiss the religious conflict argument, that narrative you mentioned, why would the U.S. be intervening in Nigeria?
Nigeria remains a very strategic partner in West Africa. It is a hegemon. It is also surrounded by Sahelian states that are being affected by jihadist groups such as ISIS, as well as Al-Qaeda affiliated groups. And if you do have the support of Nigeria, you have mostly the support of 54 African countries. So it is an important partner when we think about U.S. trade, when we think about the role that it plays regionally, when we think about the role it plays internationally. And if this partnership is successful, then it has regional interventions and implications for not just West Africa, but counterterrorism in Africa as a whole.
Now, Nigeria's foreign minister has signaled that there might be more strikes to come. Do you expect the U.S. to continue its intervention against terrorist networks in Nigeria?
Yes, I think it's going to depend on how Washington assesses the evolving threat environment. And I would also say whether Nigeria requires continued support from the U.S. With both statements from both countries, this has not been described as a one-off intervention or campaign, but it's not also being framed by both administrations as being open-ended. So I believe what we are likely to see is selective intelligence-driven cooperation between both countries, not necessarily U.S. kinetic engagement. So Nigeria, from what I've heard and from the people that I have spoken to, wants flexibility, especially when it comes to high-end capabilities when necessary, but they also want to maintain their operational control. So any future strikes would follow this model that we have seen as at yesterday.
So, Juma, do you think this kind of international intervention then will improve the security situation in Nigeria moving forward?
That's a challenging one because we do know that international intervention can be tactically effective, especially in the short term. So when we see precision attacks that happened last night, we can see how it can disrupt leadership of ISIS-affiliated groups or Al-Qaeda-affiliated groups, can degrade their capabilities and can even buy the military time. But for the most part, with what we have seen with counterterrorism efforts, we know that these are not solutions on their own. When we think about long-term security in Nigeria, it's going to depend on local governance, state presence, economic opportunities, and really rebuilding that trust between civilians and security forces. Without any of this, I do believe that the military gains might be in vain and won't hold, and external partners like the US can support, but ultimately stability has to be built within from Nigeria.
Juma, thank you very much for your insights there. That was Juma Ayandele from New York University, an Africa security policy analyst. I asked Awal Musa Rafsanjani, head of the Civil Society Legislative Advocacy Center in Abuja, what he makes of the U.S. carrying out strikes inside Nigeria.
Well, I think Nigerians are frustrated that in the last 15 years, lives and lives have not been taken serious. The protection of lives of Nigerians has been like more of a joke, and Nigerians are tired and frustrated. Every day they wake up to hear hundreds of people being killed, properties destroyed, and the people that are perpetrating these atrocities are going around doing their own thing without any effort from government to deal with them decisively. Of recent, they are on social media having even live chats, and government is not able to trace them. Government is not able to arrest them, and that's really, frustrated many Nigerians, and they are welcoming any intervention that may help deal with this. But the issue is that whether this foreign intervention is going to really help to deal decisively with this insecurity in Nigeria is what many people are not sure of. And this is just to show how government has actually failed the citizens to the extent that citizens are now looking into the years to come. I think for me, Nigerian government should admit that it has failed.
What do you think, though, because the Trump administration says more strikes could follow, this may not be just a one-off thing. Do you think this could actually help end the violence in Nigeria's north moving forward?
Well, I think if the U.S. could target the real terrorists, the real, criminals, I think Nigerians will be happy, because there has been some insinuation in some quarters that government deliberately is not going after these killers. But if the American government will truly go after the real terrorists, the real people who are not necessarily even in where they went now, they didn't go to Sambisa, they didn't go to Lake Chad, and they didn't come to where, these criminals are kidnapping people for ransom. If they have targeted those places on the first attack, I think Nigerians will have held this, action. But so far, we did not see that evidence.
So there's potential there for helping, perhaps. But I want to ask you about the religious context that the U.S. president is putting this in. Donald Trump says that the terror cells that were targeted in these strikes have been responsible for killing primarily innocent Christians, as he put it. Is that the root cause for the ongoing unrest in the regions, religious tensions?
I believe that even Donald Trump knows that that is not real. That's not the real issue, because several American officials, they have came to Nigeria, in the last 10 years to, look at religious freedom and to see whether there's any persecution of, religious identity. I don't think they have found anything like what Trump is talking about now. But I think maybe perhaps Trump wanted to have an entry point to do what he's doing now. It's very dangerous to frame this intervention only on the basis of religious intervention, particularly towards the Christians, because in Nigeria, terrorists bomb markets, they bomb schools, they bomb everywhere where you have mixture of both Muslim and Christians there. So how do you now insist that it is only, one particular religious identity that is the victim, and that your help is not about humanity, it's about only saving a particular identity?
And that was Awa Musa Rafsanjani, Executive Director of Civil Society Legislative Advocacy Center in Abuja, talking to us a little earlier.
For more, I'm joined by DW Lagos Bureau Chief Amaka Okoye. Amaka, President Trump has described this military action as an effort to protect Nigerian Christians. How are Nigerians reacting to this American claim?
Melissa, I think that's a very interesting question that you've asked there. Across boards, there are different reactions. But I would say that Trump has more fans now in Nigeria, especially after the strike. A lot of people are saying, oh, this is a welcome development, even when we listened to radio today, call-ins, different people calling in and saying, oh, yes, at least we have seen some sort of action after all. But of course, the Nigerian government is clear in saying, this is not anything to do with religion. This is trying to take away, the criminal, the bandits, the terrorists who have been, attacking Christians, Muslims across board. So yes, Nigerians are saying, this is a welcoming development. This is good news, but let's see what is going to happen, because at the back of that is also the fear that the way that Trump is framing it as a way to protect Christians, that this could potentially put Christians, in more dangers, especially those who are in the northern part, because this can even lead to a renewed religious tension because of the way that he has framed it. And I think that's why it's important, for the Nigerian government, as they have continued to say, that this is not an action against any group, religious group at all. This is the sole aim, the primary reason for this is to take away terrorists, Melissa.
I mean, you talk about the difficulty of the Nigerian government trying to reframe what's happening. How would you describe its cooperation with the United States going forward? What can we expect?
I mean, this is also what the foreign minister was talking about today, that there's a lot of collaboration already going on between America and Nigerian government. I mean, there's a trust deficit already amongst Nigerians against the government. And so a lot of people were saying, by the way, why was it not the Nigerian government that announced it first? It came first from the American government. So this is solely an American government's intervention. But the government, the Nigerian government, through the foreign minister, have reiterated that this is a collaboration, that just before the attack happened, he had spoken with America for 19 minutes, and after that, and gotten the go-ahead from President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to say, this strike can happen. And before that happened, what we are expecting to see would be more collaboration. Maybe not just only from America, because the foreign minister did say that, Nigeria is now open to support from international communities, so long as it doesn't undermine its sovereignty and its territorial integrity. So it could be France, it could be, Israel. We heard Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel also talking about the strike. So potentially there's going to be more collaborations as far as, taking away terrorists from Nigeria is concerned, Melissa.
Very quickly, what could the consequences of a military action like this be if terrorists are able to regroup?
Yeah, so it could go two ways. First is that maybe if, with this joint action, military joint action, if Nigeria continues this sustained attacks, then there's, possibility that these terrorists will be wiped out, or there will be significant reduction of their activities, a disruption of their activities, across board. But the second part is also that they could potentially become very, very emboldened, fueled by their ideology, and we could see more deadlier attacks. That's what, a lot of analysts are also, alluding to. The former would be what Nigeria will be looking into, and that will be the aim, to be able to read out terrorists at the end of the day, Melissa.
Amaka Okoye in Lagos, thank you so much for your insights.